Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle. Audio Jungle.
Good day everyone, I'm Sophia Dinglasan and I'm here in front of you to discuss about the topic primary and secondary deviance. But first, let's take a simple recap about the labeling theory. Labeling theory focuses on how people become identified as being deviant. All people commit deviant acts throughout their lives, but not everyone is labeled as deviant. It focuses on society's reaction to the deviant behavior rather than the behavior itself. Deviance. What is deviance? For a sociologist, deviance does not mean morally wrong but rather behavior that is condemned by society. Deviant behavior can include both criminal and non-criminal activities. Deviance is a violation of social conventions and rules. It refers to behavior that is not in conformity with the socially acceptable code of conduct. Deviance refers to any action that deviates from societal norms and what has been taught. These are the actions that do not conform to the norms or expectations of members of society. According to sociologists, deviance is relative, meaning it is based on the social definitions of some group. Behaviors can be considered deviant only within the context of the norms and values of particular culture. Thus, one act may be unacceptable to one group, but the same act has a considerable degree of acceptance in another group. It is defined as the behavior that violates significant social norms and is approved by the majority of people. Deviance also varies from one situation to another. A behavior only becomes deviant when it is socially defined as such, and definitions varied according to time, place, and group. For example, legalization of marijuana. The legalization of marijuana as medical and recreational use, we know that marijuana can be classified as depressant, hallucinogen, or stimulant, and it also categorized as Schedule 1 by federal law, so that marijuana was not even something to consider as treating illnesses. For example, I reside in Canada, and I have this illness called Alzheimer's disease. In Canada, marijuana was legal so that I can easily make a transaction that has been authorized by a doctor. But if I live in a country that marijuana is not legal, Japan for example, since it's illegal in Japan, I will obtain it illegally and make the transaction secret because I believe that it will help me in the treatment process. If my friends and family found out, they would label me as deviant. And if the police caught me, I will be arrested and the society would definitely label me as deviant. The only difference is the education, but the society's reaction to my behavior is very different. That is why there is primary and secondary deviance. Who created primary and secondary deviance? He is Edwin Lemert. Edwin Lemert is a sociology professor at the University of California. He acquired his bachelor's degree in sociology from Miami University and his doctorate from Ohio State University. He still is specialized in sociology and anthropology. And in 1951, he introduced the concepts of primary and secondary deviance. Let us now move on to Howard Becker. Howard Becker is an American sociologist known for his studies of occupation, education, deviance, and art. Becker studied sociology at the University of Chicago. For Howard Becker, deviance is created by society. Social groups creates deviance by making the rules whose infraction constitutes deviance, and by applying those rules to particular people and labeling them as outsiders. From this point of view, deviance is not a quality of the act the person commits, but rather a consequence of the application by others of rules and sanction to an offender. What does Howard Becker mean when he uses the term outsider? Howard Becker defines outsider as individuals who break a rule agreed on by the group. For Becker, it is not the deviant act itself but the reaction to it. For example, killing someone. One would think that killing something would still be considered deviant. But in fact, it depends on the context. In the case of the soldiers in war, for example, killing someone is part of their job and that's normal. So it's not the act itself which is deviant. What matters is where it's happening, who is doing it, who is observing it, and how law enforcers responded to it. Now, let's take a look on the difference between primary deviance and secondary deviance. Primary deviance refers to a person's behavior which does not violate or does not conform to a prescribed norm of conduct but is tolerated or concealed by others. Primary deviance is the violation of a norm. It is the act that has not been publicly labeled as deviant. Primary deviance refers to the violation of a norm or rule that does not result in the violators being stigmatized as deviant. Primary deviance basically refers to the initial act of deviance. In other words, this is the first stage of deviance behavior. At this stage, the deviance goes relatively unnoticed and there is a little social reaction or mild corrective actions. This is very common in society and most of us may have taken part in this stage. Primary deviance differ from secondary deviance in the way that individuals are not labeled deviant unless they commit secondary deviance. These are the examples of primary deviance: vandalism, cheating on tests, littering, and stealing. These examples are against on what we are taught in our norms. A person who commits deviance does not label deviant from society. Although this person goes against social norms, it mostly goes unpunished. These acts are not punishable by law but is still deviance in our society. In addition, the presence of parents and peers play a significant role in primary deviance. Now let's move to secondary deviance. Secondary deviance is labeled and the result of societal reaction. Those who are caught are publicly labeled and often stigmatized or marginalized. It may become a lifestyle and personal identity. Once labeled, this becomes their master status. Secondary deviance is a violation of a law. The secondary deviance examples are sex offenders, robbery, murderer, and drug addict. The person who is labeled as criminal, drug addict, gang member, pedophile will no longer be seen as a friend, neighbor, classmate, but instead seen as those new labels. They become the outcast to society. By putting these labels on a person, they start to believe that this new identity is who they truly are, causing them to carry out further acts of deviance. When we say master status, this is the way they see themselves. Secondary deviance usually involves crimes. In the social context, secondary deviances are more likely to be considered unlawful. Before ending the discussion, I want to leave a quotation from Tommy Lasorda. The difference between the impossible and the possible lies in a person's determinations. That's all. I hope you enjoyed listening and learned something from me. God bless you all.